obstacles are you up against right now? And how could using strategic gamification help you overcome that? Because again, going back to video game design or any game, there's an obstacle that you need to overcome. It might be, well, how do I win? How do I get first?
What if the secret to staying focused and crushing your goals wasn't just about sheer willpower, but actually about playing the game of business smarter? Imagine unlocking achievements, earning rewards, and leveling up your business just like you would in your favorite video game. Sound fun? That's the power of strategic gamification. And today we're diving deep into how you can use it to stay motivated, get results, and actually enjoy the business journey. Welcome to the Master Your Business podcast, the go-to show for ambitious coaches, consultants, and service providers who want to grow their business with strategy, confidence, and a little bit of fun. I'm Deirdre Martin, your host, award-winning author, business strategist, and all-around marketing nerd. And today I'm joined by Caitlin Johnson, an expert in strategic gamification, who's worked with powerhouse brands like Marriott International, Ritz-Carlton, and Lowe's to transform engagement and drive results using game psychology. But here's the best part. You don't need to be a gamer to make this strategy work for you. In this episode, you're going to discover the science behind why gamification works and how to apply it to your business. The 4 game player personas and which one drives your motivation. How to gamify your business goals so you stay focused without burnout. And simple tweaks to make your courses, coaching programs, or services more engaging. So if you're ready to unlock your next level in business, let's press play. Caitlin, I am so excited to welcome you to the Master Your Business podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and have this conversation.
Caitlin, we met right when you were doing my LinkedIn Visibility Challenge, and we were talking about all things gamification. So let's start with the basics. What exactly is strategic gamification?
So gamification in and of itself is just a fancy way of saying turning something into a game that isn't already in game in order to do one of 2 things: increase results and increase engagement, or possibly participation. It depends on what your results are that you're trying to go for, right? And there's a science and a psychology behind how to do that. So today, when many people think about gamification, the first thing that comes to mind are points, badges, and leaderboards. But that is surface level game mechanics. You need to understand why you would want to use those and what type of game player would be enticed by those extrinsic motivators. So that's where the strategic part comes in, is understanding how people play games and why and how to use certain game mechanics to increase participation or engagement.
So how does that differ from just turning work into like a plain game?
It's just how to be more effective by it. So for example, many organizations may incorporate a fun game in which you're competing against each other to get more sales or increase guest satisfaction. And that's actually how I started with strategic gamification, is at Marriott International in the United States. We were looking at how to increase guest satisfaction during the summer months over last year. And we created a game behind it. But it was very in-depth around why should people play? And so as I was learning about video game design and helping design the strategy behind this, you have to start with, what's the epic mission? What is the reason to play? And why do people want to play? And why will they come back? So it wasn't just the sake of, hey, let's see how much we can increase guest satisfaction. It had to get to the core of who we are as a business. It was, we want to make sure we create amazing vacations for our families and guests during the summer months. How do we do that? And then the game rules came off of that.
And what of that? Because that sounds like so cool. I'd love to hear, like, collectively with all of the people involved in that, was there like a common aha moment that made people realize the power of this? Or how did everybody?
That's a great question. And, not everybody was initially bought in. And I will say, I was not bought in on this term gamification when I first heard it. I was like, what the?
It's
What
okay.
is
You
this?
can say what the fuck.
Okay, yeah,
That's
what
allowed.
the hell? Yeah, I was like, who's the leader? Whose color of the week is this idea of playing games in the workplace? We're not here to play games. We're here to get stuff done, you know? So I had to understand the science and methodology behind this to get bought in on how to execute on it. And what I've found is when you break down big, hairy, audacious goals, corporate, strategies, and you just put it into simple game terms, all of a sudden people understand how to contribute. And that is the essence of strategic gamification to me, is how do you engage the hearts and the minds of people to help them make a difference in their day-to-day work. So it wasn't just playing a game for game's sake. It was, let me help you understand how to make an impact in your job and see results happen as an outcome. And how can we do that collectively as an entire organization in the United States, Canada, and Central and Latin America?
And what is it about games? Like, why do our brains love games so much?
Oh gosh, that is such a great question. And you know what? I don't really know where it stems, because I actually went to a vacation last year in Japan. And, Japan created Nintendo and Super Mario, and they've got a really strong standing in the game world, right? And I went to a shrine and there were these beautiful pictures. I forget what they call them, but just paintings of people interacting thousands of years ago, and they were all sitting around tables playing games. So it's just a natural pastime of ours, and it's fun. It helps us relax. There's more and more research that video games help people decompress, with moderation, right? Because we can get sucked into video games. But there's just a science and an interest. It intrinsically motivates us to play. There are extrinsic components to it, right? Like a badge or points, like things that you earn as you play. But where I find games to be so fascinating intrinsically is that it's truly problem solving in creative ways. Like if we think about Super Mario and needing to overcome all the little Goombas and challenges and Bowser at the end of a level, as a player, you're trying to understand, how do I conquer this? And you try and Mario falls off the wall, because that happens to me all the time, right? And then you fawn and you start again and you learn from your mistakes and you move forward. So it also reinforces growth mindset. So persistence to keep trying, growth mindset, creative problem solving. And many games also trigger not just competition, but collaboration. Some games you cannot complete by yourself. You have to have other people with you.
I love that. And actually, my teenage daughter right now has been doing a project in school and it's called Junk Couture. So it's like kids aged 12 to 16, they participate in this thing in small groups where they have to create some form of couture outfit from recyclable materials. And my daughter's team, they came up with a project and called it Game Night Glam. So
Oh,
actually, it's actually really cool, and they've made the entire outfit from different types of games and stuff. Like it's epic. So like they've got a
yeah,
hat. The hat is a Scrabble board on one side, and there's got letters all over it, and
that's
got
cool.
like they've got like pool table green on the other side of it with like snooker cues and balls and stuff, and the whole outfit is like cards from different games. And actually, part of the project that they had to do was to write about why are there so many games and why do people play games. And one of the things that
Mm,
she touched on actually was the social aspect as well.
mm.
And it's that belonging sense that when you're with others, and I'm like, oh yeah. And I literally learned this from my 16-year-old. But I think if I was to add one extra to all of the amazing things that you said, that's what hit home for me from her project. It is that social thing. We crave so, you know, belonging.
Connection, and belonging. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So let me share with you, there are four main ways people play games. And this will help you understand aspects of connection in gameplay. This is information a gentleman named Richard Bartle, a British researcher and professor, discovered in 1996 when he was diving into video game dynamics and why people enjoy playing. And so the 4 player types, the first one he calls a killer, but I don't really love the word. I like to go with dominator. This player loves highly strategic games. They want to beat their competition. They might have the slogan of in their mind of there are no friends in card games, even if I'm playing against my kids, like they're just going to dominate and be the top of the leaderboard. So they also like to read the directions so that they can find the gray space. So they will strategically look for the easiest, fastest, most efficient way to win.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then the next, that's dominator, or in Richard's language, killer. The next one is an achiever. The achiever loves the journey of collecting all the things along the way. So the badges, the trophies, they want to show off their trophies. So if there's a way to showcase it, like think about LinkedIn Learning. You can take a LinkedIn Learning, you instantly get a badge, and then you can post it on social and share with everybody that you've, made this accomplishment. And so for an achiever, they love that. They
Yeah,
love,
that's
me
me when I'm
too.
playing games. I'm like, I want all of those things. I want the thing that's really high up there, that's difficult to get. That's totally
Yes.
me. And that aligns with I've had a saboteur assessment recently. I'm like a
Mm.
hyper achiever. So this is like, you're talking my language with this one.
Here, like, so outside of corporate world or just business world and entrepreneurship, for me, I enjoy training for Ironmans. Now, not many people would say they enjoy training for Ironmans, but it's, for me, it's the accomplishment of each of those 3 skills. I have to get all in and swim. I have to go all in and bike. I have to go all in and run. And it's that journey of accomplishment through all of that that is thrilling to me. And then I want all the freaking badges on my Garmin watch for whatever reason, So
Yeah,
yeah, achiever,
same.
right? Okay, yeah. All right, so then the next one is an explorer. So this game player understands how to win, but it's not about winning. It's about exploring along the way. So if there's a squirrel, they're going to go chase it. If there's a new path that's undiscovered, they want to go figure that out. They want to unturn every rock, push every button. In the corporate world, these people are super curious, and they may even come across as too many questions, like just go get it done, right? But they're like, no, what happens if I upset the apple cart here? What would happen? Or what if we did it this way? Actually, when I'm doing coaching, many times people who connect with being an explorer have undiagnosed or diagnosed ADHD. They're just quick moving. So you may not have that neurodivergent component, but they are just creative people who want to keep moving pretty quickly. And so I find that fascinating, because if in the corporate world, we only build games to say who can be the best, like in sales, who can generate the most revenue by the end of this quarter. If we only build strategies like that, you're leaving out an explorer, because they're not necessarily motivated to be at the top. They might find creative ways to build longer relationships with potential clients and things like that. So their end game is going to be completely different than a dominator or an achiever.
I love that,
Okay.
because they're
Yeah.
the people who'll ask, what happens if? And I think it's interesting when you say that, because I know sometimes, like, it's like with new technology, right? So as a solopreneur or entrepreneur, you're like, new technology, what would happen if I press this button? Or what would
Yes.
happen if I tried it this way? And actually, I think it's interesting, because so far, all of the 3 players that you've talked about, I see this as entrepreneurs. We have to be all 3, and potentially
Yes.
4. So what's the 4th one?
Yes. The 4th one. Yeah, you're spot on. Okay. So then the 4th one is a connector. Richard Bartle actually calls it a socializer. So I've named it connector because what I have seen is this individual, they are those connecting people in the sense of they're your go-to folks that know everybody and they will introduce you to everybody. They also understand how to win, but it's not about the win for them. It's about winning with other people. So games that they would love to play are more collaborative, team related games. I think about this person as, Lord of the Rings. You've got Frodo, who's on this quest. Samwise Gamgee. Samwise Gamgee is the connector. He's the one helping Frodo on the path to success. Right there, making sure he doesn't go crazy in his head, right? And all the things around the storyline. So this individual, think about, going back to that sales game I was talking about, if you are only trying to encourage people to be the best and to get the most, a socializer isn't motivated in that way. That connector would rather be part of a team that might be trying to be the best and collaborating versus competing.
It's interesting, actually, because I'm just thinking, how could an entrepreneur, let's say, as opposed to somebody in the corporate space, how could they figure out their dominant game player persona and use it to their advantage? And straight away, there's a person coming to my mind. This episode has been released a few weeks after what happened to me yesterday, which was I facilitated a rapid fire marketing mastermind. And
Mm,
one of the ladies came with a question, and her question was, I'm a connector. I get my business through referrals, and that's my only marketing stream or avenue. That's
mhm.
everything that I do comes from my network and my connections. So I'm like, she's totally a connector. I can see that in her. That's her dominant one. But for everybody else who has no clue which one they are, what could
Yeah.
they do to figure out what their dominant game player type?
Okay. So, first of all, you could just really simply think about what games do you like to play and how do you play them? So, for example, if you are interested in the board game Risk, you're probably hands down a dominator.
Mm-hmm. On
Like
Scrabble.
yeah, Scrabble, yeah. Scrabble, yeah. You know what? There could be the strategic component in that too. But you're also playing, you could be the achiever. So you could be a little bit of everything. Here's the thing, you don't have to be just one player. We
Mm.
typically connect with one the most. So, Deirdre, you're saying achiever. I connect the most with achiever. But then also, let me explain how I tap into each of those when I need it the most. So, different environments will activate different motivations and therefore different game player personas. So, I am writing a book on how to gamify your goals. And I am silently competing, although I laugh because I tell this on to everybody. I'm competing against James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits. His book's phenomenal, and I highly recommend you read it. But then once my book's in the world, I want you to get mine too, in order to sustain the effort and incorporate fun elements of going after atomic habits. So I'm studying James and his approach. I'm looking at how did he write his book? What do I like about it? How do I want mine to be same or better? Right? Because as a dominator, you want to beat the best, kind of get out there. So how do I eventually at some point, and most likely it'll be 10 years, it took James 10 years to get on that bestsellers list. Right? So the dominator in me comes out there. The achiever is my general way in which I like to move through the world. I love setting goals. I love accomplishing the goals, checking them off, and things like that. The connector, my business, is all around helping other people create epic goals in life and accomplish meaningful objectives. And so that connection piece is I'm always looking to help other people. The explorer is the one game player type that I'm not naturally good at. I have to actively seek this one. So here's the thing, in order to balance my high achieving personality, there are moments when I'm like, how do I just dream a little bit instead of focus on execution and have fun? So when I'm traveling to workshops, I try to incorporate what national park could I go see while I'm there? But here's the funny thing. So in the United States, we have national parks association, and they have a booklet that you can get stamps and badges, right? So I'm like, which national park can I go see to get my stamp? So I see that you can be all of these, and it depends on which environment you're in and which one you want to press play on in
Mm.
order to be your best self.
It's interesting because, like, I don't know, are you familiar with DISC, Caitlin?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I can see how the disc would play into this as well, and how the disc profiles could be aligned with the four, and the same with disc. For anyone who's not familiar with disc, it's like dominate, right? It's the dominating one. Then you have the influencer or influence
Mhm.
person. Then you have the steadiness person, and then you have the conscientiousness. So I can see how those four could correlate with this, which is really interesting. And I think as an entrepreneur, if you've never had any kind of leadership profiling or anything like that done before, it's definitely worthwhile maybe talking to Caitlin or somebody who can help you with this, because knowing how you naturally are can help you play more to your strengths, right?
Yes, absolutely. And so that's more of where strategic gamification comes in, because it's one thing to know how people play games, and then you can apply the right tactics to motivate you and engage you. So, in this sense, having self awareness of, well, how do I prefer to play? The next thing is to understand, well, how do I engage that player type, right? And so to activate the denominator when the dominator is needed, to activate the explorer. So when I'm building strategies, I incorporate different elements. Yes, badges, yes, leaderboards, but also a chat feature for the socializers and the connectors. It's also a way to share best practices. So an explorer can go in and say, like, oh, how are other people doing this? Maybe I can learn from them. So there are different game mechanics that I'll incorporate into strategies based on those 4 game player types.
I'm like, let's press play and get going on this. So let's talk about an entrepreneur and
Hmm.
goals, right? And how can strategic gamification work in terms of those goals? Or
Yes.
can it work? And if so, are some harder to gamify than others?
So, yes, it can work. And one of the thought processes that I share with strategic gamification is going back to video game design, in the sense of, how can you as an entrepreneur leverage quests and streaks on the way towards goal achievement? So, we as entrepreneurs, you can't, I truly don't think you can be an entrepreneur if you don't have some epic true north mission in life, right? Like, you're like, oh, I'm going to make this impact, and that's important. So now it's like, okay, well, how do I do that? And also, as a solopreneur and entrepreneur, you're wearing so many hats that you have to be very agile and pivot very quickly. So the idea of creating 90-day quests, or think about it as seasonal objectives, allows you to adapt as you are building your business and addressing the needs of your clients. So I recommend that you look at the quarter upcoming. We're filming here. Tomorrow is going to be March 1st. This will go live at the end of March. But think about, at that point, okay, April 1, what could I do over the next 90 days to make an impact in my business? What's needed? And then you build out that quest. So, for example, one of the things that's needed in my world is to learn how to effectively sell. I'm going to be super vulnerable here for a moment, right? I've been in business for 4 years, and I've had some really great luck. I've worked with great organizations, the Ritz-Carlton, Marriott International, some other brands within the US, Bass Pro Shops, and Lowe's Home Improvement. So all of this works. But then when you're trying to stand on your own 2 feet and press repeat and replay, that can get a little tricky. So learning how to share with people the benefits and outcomes of how they can use strategic gamification is a bit tricky. Some
I
people
think you're
have,
doing a great job right now.
well, and I loved your 5-day challenge, because first of all, it was a bit gamey, because I was like, ooh, a 5-day challenge, let me accomplish that. And then just how you talk about building relationships and showcasing your worth and things like that. That's my version of sales too. In many ways, I'm demystifying my bias on sales to make sure I'm coming across in an authentic way. So I'm actually working with a sales leader to understand his strategies, and we're doing a bit of an information exchange. He's helping me, and I'm helping him learn how to gamify his goals. We're reading different tactics around sales, and I can poke holes at it and ask him his thoughts and opinions. So let's break this down for a minute. I'm on a 90-day quest to upskill my sales strategies. And in order to do that, I'm excited. I've got a 90-day objective. I'm also doing it with somebody else. So that connector piece, right? And accountability is helping me stay motivated in this. It might even activate my dominator to a certain extent, because once I feel more confident in how I'm positioning what I do, goodness, I'm afraid the floodgates will open in a good way, right? So this quest of 90 days, how can I upskill my sales skill set.
Love it. Love
Okay.
it. And actually, on this, I'm going to tell you, go back and look at episode or listen to episode 113. It's the
Okay.
pricing strategy that helps
Oh.
you close more deals faster. And in there, it is talking about that whole sales funnel piece. So,
Mm-hmm.
not to be confused with like a marketing funnel, different. It's that sales process from a lead to,
Mm-hmm.
so you have to market to attract leads, but then once they become a lead, once you identify a lead, then it becomes a sales process, and people often confuse the two, or they think it's all the one thing. So go back and listen to that for anybody who's like,
Yeah,
they need to know more about sales instead of marketing. There's a lot in
that's
there,
great.
and that might be helpful. But I've got two book recommendations I want to talk about here as well, just again for
Go
not
for
just
it.
you, but anybody else listening. A really great one is Fanatical Prospecting by Jeb
Mm.
Blunt, if you've not heard about that. And another one is From Sales Conversation. So I didn't realize I was doing this, but I got coached to become a coach.
Mm-hmm.
And part of my role when I was a coach in my corporate career was sales coaching. And
Hmm.
I had been an achiever. I had been the top salesperson in the bank that I worked in nationally across
Wow.
multiple different products over many different years. And so what I realized after I read this book was this was a sales approach that I had taken, but without any sales training. So I didn't realize that this was how I did it. And
Hmm.
the technique is called gap selling. So
Huh.
what you do is you coach people to identify if they have a gap and what their problems are. And then if you have the solution, you recommend your product or service as the solution. Simple as that. So it's really
Yes.
nice.
Yes, I love that approach because I was actually speaking. We'll go on a sales rabbit hole for a minute. So our explorers are coming out. I was talking with my husband just the other day, and he actually had applied for a bank in college years ago and ended up getting the job. But part of their interview process was take this pen and sell this pen to me. And I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't want to be that type of salesperson. That's pushy, right? I want to organically, to your point, understand what obstacles are you up against right now? And how could using strategic gamification help you overcome that? Because again, going back to video game design or any game, there's an obstacle that you need to overcome. It might be, well, how do I win? How do I get first? How do I beat Bowser at the end of this? There's always some sort of roadblock or obstacle. And that's where I also feel the frameworks that I've developed help people who are in a transition. You
Mm.
can be in a transition in any, you could be early career, you could be transitioning out of college, you could be transitioning because you're unemployed, you could be transitioning because you quit and you're trying to figure out how to move forward. There's so many ways that we could be quote unquote stuck, but really the stuckness is you are in a transition and you're not sure how to move forward. The best way to move forward is to take action. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck. But the fear is, well, what action should I take? How do I know it's the right action? Well, why don't you brainstorm what you could do for the next 90 days and see where you get after that? So it helps people build small momentum to see, is this the right direction or is it not? So as you have this quest that you're going to do for 90 days, here's where streaking comes in. And I always laugh because it's like, no, not that type of streaking, when you were younger, right?
That's exactly what was coming to my mind. I'm not gonna lie.
Right. No, not that kind. It's the idea of consistent and consecutive action. So going back to my sales quest, all right, I want to be better at sales. The next question is, well, what can you do on a daily or weekly basis to help you become better at sales? So now we're getting into the action format. So I have a streak that I'm going to keep of doing one thing a week to upskill myself. So it might be read a chapter of a sales book. It might be go back and listen to your episode 113, right? So every week. And really at that point, you're only doing 12 things. 12 things. So that might be the pace that someone who's an entrepreneur needs to play because you've got your hands in everything. So doing one thing a week might be the right pace. For others, doing one thing a day might be the right pace. So one of my favorite tools that does streaking really well is Duolingo. right? So you're supposed to maintain a streak of logging in and doing 5 minutes of practicing a language a day. You do not want to piss that owl off. They're super clever about how they use that owl to just kind of guilt trip you to keep your streak going, right?
But that's gamification in and of itself, right? It's so cool, actually.
It is.
Have to say, I have never logged into Duolingo. I am not a Duolingo account holder, but
Yeah.
I have researched their marketing strategy and how they position their brand and the types of things that they do with their owl.
Yes.
So even
Yeah,
after
actually,
yeah, I
I did.
think even after this conversation, I may just need to go and sign up for Duolingo so I can get in there and see how it works.
Yeah, they definitely use mechanics of games in really creative ways. Okay. I had some
Cool.
internal noise, so then you can cut that out and move forward. But Duolingo uses gamification in such creative ways. In some ways, I do feel like it's a little bit manipulative because it's pushy. But
Mm,
if your ultimate epic mission is to learn a language, then it's definitely incorporating accountability to keep you motivated because you don't want to break that streak. So the idea of keeping a streak of consistent and consecutive action of what action or behavior do you need to work on in this 90 days so that you're successful at completing your quest.
mm. So one thing that I would like to just ask you to expand on a little bit more is that, yesterday, as I mentioned, I was doing this rapid fire marketing mastermind, and some of the things came up were that people find certain tasks, not just marketing, like one person was asking about, she's like a bookkeeper, accountant, that kind of thing. It was like people
Mhm.
hate numbers and they're boring tasks or they're difficult because it's not within their wheelhouse. So, have you got any examples of fun or unexpected ways that someone has gamified something that's like totally freaking boring or really difficult?
Oh, I feel like all of a sudden I put my consultant hat on. Well, so what I would recommend for somebody in that scenario is to really get down to the root cause, the reason why are you in the position that you're in? What is the bigger epic mission? So really getting to true meaning because the tasks that you're up against may be arduous, may be mundane, but if you remember that it is essential in order to help you achieve something bigger, bigger purpose, bigger meaning, then you'll see the valid reasons as to why you should do it. So that can trigger additional motivation of like, yeah, I mean, gosh, I kind of think about it as clocking in and clocking out on a day job. You're like, oh, what? Why do I have to do this? Well, what is your epic mission for that? Is it because there are elements that you love in that job? There just are some that you don't, and you're never going to escape all of the things that you don't love it. Or is it truly because it's financially you need to be able to put food on the table? Like remember the bigger reason as to why you're playing what you're playing. So
Mm,
is it serving something bigger? And then you can apply some of these tactics of engaging your game player type to help you stay motivated.
mm. Yeah. Okay. That just makes sense, I think. And, it's like it's common sense, but in a gamey way, which is fun. And if somebody is listening today, Caitlin, and they're like, okay, I actually want to start using strategic gamification today, I think it would make
Mhm.
my business and showing up to do those tasks a little bit more fun
Yes.
step that they should take.
Well, first, I would recommend you reach out to me so I can give you the framework of what to do because there aren't very many books on this topic. There
Mm-hmm.
is one really great one. It's called Actionable Gamification by Yukai Chu, and but it's almost a textbook. Like it's heavy. It's got a lot of information in it. So if you want a more simplified version of, yeah, I just need the meat and the potatoes, I don't need all of the bells and whistles, then I would say reach out to me because what I do is I help in many different capacities. I'll either help you if you're interested of just how do I gamify my own personal and professional goals? So for my self-development. Or what if I have a team that's just not engaged and I need to get them excited about what we're accomplishing together? Team dynamics and then building out a strategy to be able to build that quote unquote game of what you're impacting. I also help coaches and solopreneurs in gamifying their programs. So you have a solid program, a solid foundation, but you want to spice it up a little bit and get people more interested in what you're doing and motivated to finish the course, right? So then I'll guide you towards how can we add some of those intrinsic motivators into your programming.
Oh, I think that's really cool because a lot of people listening are coaches, consultant service providers, and potentially they have digital courses or programs. And I see it from my own because I can see this. If you're a client of mine, I can see how much of the content you have consumed. I know those of you who are the achievers and have gotten to the end of the course, but I know those of you who have not.
Yes.
And
So
so,
even for you, thinking through how could you challenge after finishing a course, what is the 90-day quest or objective you're going after? How can I help support you from an accountability standpoint? Or how can you join my community, join the community of others who are doing this too, to support and kind of have that the Duolingo owl effect, right? It's like, did you do the thing you said you were going to do? Being able to keep track of that streak of action.
so we definitely do that in the community, but for some of the other things I don't, but I will now after speaking with you today. So
Yeah.
thank you for that. I guess I was going to ask you if there are any apps or tools that you recommend for people to get started with.
Yeah, two of my favorite, and they are a little bit more on the personal side, so not necessarily corporate. One is called the Habitat app. Why I like it is it reinforces habits, but I struggle with the word habit because there's research that says in 21 days or 66 days you'll build a habit. I have been designing games for over 10 years for corporations. 72,000 people have played the games that I've built. Here's what I've found. It takes 21 days to build a routine. In that 21 days, by 21 days, you don't have to think so hard to do the thing that's new. You still have to think about it. And that's where a streak to me comes in, because in order to keep a streak, you have to intentionally do it. It's not habit, right? Like learning a language, you can't build a habit in 21 days around a language. So it's showcasing the consistency that's needed. Jerry Seinfeld, a comedian in the United States, back before apps were designed, used to have a calendar, and you would put an X in the box of practicing one joke a day in order to become the comedian that he is today. And so his concept was he wasn't going to break the chain. He was essentially keeping a streak, right? Yeah. So the streaks are important for you on your way towards habit creation.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Right now, I'm listening to an audiobook by Dr. Joe Dispenza called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself.
Yeah, my eyes just got big.
Yeah, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, How to Lose Your Mind and Create a New One.
Huh? Very clever.
Really interesting. And it is about breaking habits and things that we do totally subconsciously and how to create new ones. He talks about when you drive a car, before you learn to drive a car, you never would have thought that you could get in the car, put your seatbelt on, put the key in the ignition or press the start button, put your foot in the clutch, put the car into drive, indicate, check your mirrors, and do all those things in such a sequential order that become so natural, but they become habitual after time. So at first it's really difficult. Then you're kind of progressing through, and then after a time of daily practice or regular practice, it just becomes so totally natural. So it's really cool how he breaks that down and explains it. But you've literally explained it in the exact same way, Caitlin.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So I'll go back to Habitat. And the reason why I like that app is you can keep a streak. They call it habits, but you can check off every day. It'll send you a little reminder if that works for you. But the other reason why I like it is that there is an internal chat feature. So you can go on this streak with other people. So for example, I'm writing my book on how to gamify your goals, and I have a 136-week streak of doing one thing every week to make progress on this book, because it's a bit of my side hustle. I mean, I'm a solopreneur, you guys. I'm doing a lot of things. So the intent of this streak is for me to not lose focus on the importance of finishing my book. And yes, it's taking me over 2 years, and it might even take me another, I'm hoping to get it out into the world this year. But the intent of, I've been focused so long on it. Don't break it. Keep going. Use it as motivation, right? So I love that I then have 2 other people that have been part of my journey writing their own book. And so we check in with each other, and every week we commit to doing one thing for our book, and we share it in the chat feature, and we celebrate each other.
So cool. And I think the streaks are really important because consistency in anything is what builds muscle, right?
Yes.
And whether it's doing your LinkedIn posts daily or commenting or connecting daily, that consistency, like people are like, Deirdre, marketing is so hard, but actually it's because they fall off the bandwagon and they don't do it consistently that then they don't get the results. Whereas
That's right.
using streaks, like you've just explained, I think is absolutely cool. And the way you've described it with that Habitat app and your book, I think is a fantastic way for people to not lose motivation over time. Because I kind of explain it this way, Kate, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. It's a bit like, when you start the game Monopoly, for example, to use game as an example, Monopoly, you can start the game and everybody starts with the same amount of money and you roll the dice for the first time and everybody's excited. But that game can go on for fucking hours, right?
Oh, forever.
And then it's like, oh my God, are we going to, being an entrepreneur can feel like that sometimes, right? And
Yes.
you're buying hotels and you're building, you're purchasing blocks and the whole thing, right?
Yes.
And it can feel like a marathon. So like that consistency and a way to not lose motivation after you come out of the blocks, something like Habitat with streaks could be really, really helpful for people.
Yes. And when I pair streaks with quests, I'm intentional at after 90 days, I'm revisiting, does this streak still serve me? How far did I get? Because it's about the journey of what you can accomplish in this quest. It may not always be about, did I become an epic salesperson at the end of 90 days? I am leveling myself up over the course of 90 days. So after 90 days, to your point, like you don't have to keep playing Monopoly and keep that streak going. You need to ask yourself, do I still need this? And should I pivot on a different quest next season and a different streak? Because that's what's going to be needed to be able to move forward. I love that about this way of using game design and applying it to goal strategy and business development, because it gives you many objectives to accomplish. And 90 days, that truly is a sweet spot of effort. What I found, again, over 10 years of doing this, anything less than 60 days and you're not going to see the traction you were hoping for, because it's not enough time for the consistency to show results. After 90 days, you have accomplished a lot, but we start to outsmart ourselves and we get bored with the strategy. So whatever tactic, and even like the streak, like I don't streak for everything. That might not always be my way of getting things done. I vary the tactics that motivate me, because one season I'm all gung-ho and I'm training for an Ironman and I get my badge and award, right? Another season, I might just want to connect with people and build relationships. And so I don't need to win a badge or keep a streak on that. I just need to connect with people. And so that sticky note that you put up on your bathroom mirror to remind you to do your thing, after about 90 days and many times less, you don't look at the darn sticky note anymore. So the fact that this strategy allows you to adjust is important, because we outsmart ourselves and instant gratification kicks in, and we don't want to be disciplined in the same way we were when we first started.
That makes sense. And I think like a follow-on question from that for me then is, what is the biggest mindset shift that people need to make to successfully get started and turn their goal into an engaging game in the first place?
I think it starts with growth mindset. It's like growth mindset on steroids, because it's being able to press repeat after every 90 days of moving forward. If you are a coach and an entrepreneur and in this space, you know how hard this is. And so it also reinforces persistence and collaboration, because you cannot build a successful business by yourself. You just can't. At some point, you're going to max out your skill set and you're going to need to bring in other collaborators. So I talk about, how are you building a team of supporters? They could be cheerleaders, mentors, coaches, strategic partners. There's so many other dynamics about gameplay that you can incorporate as you're building a business.
Oh my gosh, that's so much fun. I'm like, woo, let's go. I'm like, because sometimes it does really feel like a slog, but it doesn't have to feel like a slog, and you can make it more fun and engaging. And Caitlin, honestly, it's been such a fun chatting with you, not just today, but I love the language that you use. And, I'm going to press play, I'm going to press pause, do all that sort of stuff. I love the game language. It's so fun even to use that language. So tell us, aside from your amazing book that's coming out, if you know the name, tell us the name, tell us what else is coming out for you.
Yeah, so the name, I'm going to eventually crowdsource with my beta readers on ideas of what they think it should be called, because I'm playing around actually with the gamer's mindset. So understanding the mindset behind the games and kind of spinning off of the growth mindset book. But I'm curious to see what other people think, because so many people say, oh man, this reminds me that I am resilient and I am persistent and that I'm empowered to be able to move forward. There's a lot of spirit around empowerment when people understand how to play again. Like, we lose sight of that as adults, which goes back to my initial color of the week thought. And when I thought this was like, what the hell? Gamification? Because I haven't always been playful in my life. I've been very hyper focused, right? Climb the ladder, do the thing, be that high achiever. And there was a point in my life when I lost the fun. I refound it and then found this language. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the way to play life. It's hard. It will be hard. You will always come across some sort of obstacle. But how do you move through it, around it, or above it, and burst through the wall?
So the book is coming out. We don't know the name yet, but what else is coming up for you? And I'm going to share all of your links in the show notes, but what else is coming up?
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much for reminding me. So I have a goal getter community. So it's going to be a group of like-minded questers who want to attack their goals in this way of being able to smaller bite size and just learn the elements of gameplay to be able to take your dreams and put them into a reality with a strong strategic foundation behind it. And so that's launching in March. And then to kick off each of those communities, so every quarter, I'll have a 5-day challenge where you'll learn all the things, but then you'll actually play all the things over the course of the next 90 days. So there's self-awareness, there's team building dynamics, there's questing, there's streaking. So all of this to help you move forward in life.
So definitely go and check out Caitlin, folks. And as you can hear, it is not just a serious business get shit done. It's serious get shit done and have fun while doing it.
Yes, exactly.
Amazing. Caitlin, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Loved it.
Whoa, what a fun and powerful conversation. Caitlin Johnson, she just dropped some serious gold on how strategic gamification can help you stay focused, motivated, and actually enjoy achieving your business goals and the journey that goes with achieving them, right? So here are some of my key takeaways. First, gamification is more than just points and leaderboards. It's actually about psychology and engagement and fun. Second, understanding the 4 game player personas can really help you tailor strategies that will keep you motivated, which I think is really crucial because sometimes motivation can lag, even for the best of us. And third, whether you're a coach, consultant, or course creator, gamifying your business can drive better results, increase client satisfaction, and result in client loyalty. So here's your next move, or here's your mission, should you choose to accept it. Because maybe you're fired up just like me. I want you to pick one goal and brainstorm a way to gamify it. Think about, will you create a streak challenge for yourself or a quest? Will you create some sort of progress tracker or use the app Habitat like Caitlin mentioned? Can you put in place a fun reward system for any people that you have working on your team? Whatever you decide to do, get creative, but start today. You've got to roll the dice. If you love this episode, go check out Caitlin's work and resources. She's got a ton of gamification strategies to help you level up, and be sure to check out her course. Keep playing, keep growing, and until next time, keep mastering your business.